It is important for us to reflect on the ahadith and the verses of the Noble Quran that speaks about Jahannam. And it is through reflection on these verses that we will attain the fear of Allah. Sometimes we become complacent and we focus on the attributes of mercy of Allah. But like all the attributes of Allah, they are all juxtaposed by the attributes of the power, the might, and the fact that Allah, when He punishes, His punishment is really severe. So therefore, it is important for us from time to time to reflect on the verses with regards to Jahannam. So when we look at Jahannam, in a Sahih al-Bukhari narration it is stated, paradise is surrounded by difficulties and the fire is surrounded by temptations. So it is the following of one's desires and one's temptations that will lead one towards the fire of Jahannam. It is stated in a Sahih Muslim narration that the announcement will be made, O Jannatis, now there will be no death. Jahannamis, now there will be no death. And on hearing this call, the Jannatis will be delighted and the Jahannamis will become more depressed. When we look at the description of Jahannam, the depth of Jahannam is such that if a rock is dropped into Jahannam, it will remain plummeting for 70 years before touching the pit of Jahannam. When we look at the description of the walls of Jahannam, it is stated in a narration that 4 walls surrounding Jahannam, the width of each wall is the walking distance of 40 years. There are gates to Jahannam. Jahannam has 7 gates. One of them is for the one who unsheaths a sword against my ummah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, and this narration is in Mishkat. In terms of the atmosphere and the heat, Jahannam was heated for 1,000 years and it turned red. It was then heated for another 1,000 years and it became white. It was again heated for another 1,000 years and it turned black. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then said, at present, Jahannam is pitch black and dark. That is in the narration of Tirmidhi. And Sahih al-Muslim it is stated, the fire in which one will burn in this world, one burns in this world, is just 70th part of the fire of Jahannam. So that is the atmosphere of Jahannam. Once Jahannam complained to Allah against the increasing heat because one portion was eating up into another. And then Allah, the Rabb of the worlds, allowed it to have 2 breaths, one during summer and another during winter. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, therefore, the heat you feel is the effect of the heat of Jahannam. With it, the breath is taken out. And similarly, the rigid cold you experience is the effect of the breath taken in by Jahannam. And this is in a narration in Sahih al-Bukhari. Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu has narrated and said that the gates of Jahannam are one upon each other, and this denotes that Jahannam has layers. The hypocrites will be in the lowest depths of the fire. And this is from the verse of the Noble Quran, إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْقِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ. There is a place in Jahannam which is known as the pit of grief, Jabalul Huzn. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that seek refuge from Allah from Jabalul Huzn, the pit of grief. The Sahaba said, O Nabi of Allah, what is Jabalul Huzn? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, it is a fire, it is a valley in Jahannam. Daily, Jahannam seeks protection with Allah from it 400 times. Someone said, O Nabi of Allah, who will enter into it? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, it has been prepared for the Qaris who display their deeds. Verily, among the most detested Qurra by Allah are those who visited the rulers. So this is a warning, that any good deed, if it's done with the wrong intention, then rather than bringing us reward, it will take us further away. And worst of, to use the book of Allah to gain prominence, to gain recognition, to show off, to show one's skill. In the verses of the Noble Quran, there's referred to as Zaqqum. Now what is Zaqqum? And Allah Rabbul Izzah says, وَأَصْحَابُ الشِّمَالِ مَا أَصْحَابُ الشِّمَالِ فِي سَمُومٍ وَحَمِيمٍ وَظِلٍّ مِّن يَحْمُومٍ لَا بَارِدٍ وَلَا كَرِيمٍ إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَبْلَ ذَلِكَ مُتْرَفِينَ وَكَانُوا يُسِرُّونَ عَلَى الْحِنْثِ الْعَظِيمِ وَكَانُوا يَقُولُونَ أَئِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَإِنَّا لَمَبْعُوثُونَ. Allah says, and the people of the left, how wretched are the people of the left. They shall be caught by a fierce scorching wind in boiling water and a shade of intense black thick smoke. Neither will it be cool. La baridi wa la kareem, nor is it hospitable. And then the verse goes on to say, oh you deviates who used to falsify the haqq, the truth, verily you shall eat from the tree of Zaqqum. Thus you shall fill your bellies from the thorns of it, and then upon having been forced to swallow the thorns, you shall drink boiling water, and you shall be forced to drink it like thirsty camels. فَشَارِبُونَ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْحَمِيمِ فَشَارِبُونَ شُرْبَ الْهِيمِ هَذَا نُزُلُهُمْ يَوْمَ الدِّينِ. This will be for them their hospitality on the day of reckoning. Allah Rabbul Izzah says in Surah Safat, أَذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ نُزُلًا أَمْ شَجْرَةُ الزَّقُّومِ إِنَّا جَعَلْنَاهَا فِتْنَةً لِلظَّالِمِينَ. Is this Jannah better hospitality than the tree of Zaqqum? We have most certainly made Zaqqum a fitna, a punishment for the oppressors. Verily it is a tree which rises from the depths of Jahim. Its fruit resemble the heads of shayateen. Verily they will be forced to eat from it and fill their bellies. Thereafter there will be for themselves a mixture of boiling water. The verses of Surah Safat. And also in Surah Dukhan, إن الشجرة الزقوم طعام الأثيم كالمغل يغلي في البطون كغلي الحميم خذوه فاعتلوه إلى سواء الجحيم ثم صبوا فوق رأسي من عذاب الحميم ذق إنك أنت العزيز الكريم إن هذا ما كنتم به تمترون. Verily, the tree of Zaqqum shall be the food of the sinful. It will be like oil which shall boil in the bellies just as water boils. And it shall be commanded, grab him, drag him to the depths of the blazing fire, then pour over his head the punishment of boiling water. Look, taste, verily you are supposed to be great and honorable. This is what you used to doubt, used to mock and deny. So this tree, regarding the tree of Zaqqum, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, even if a drop from the tree of Zaqqum is dropped onto the earth, it would contaminate the food of the entire mankind. In Surah Tawbah, Allah Rabbul Izzah addressed the people of Iman. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن كثيرا من الأحبار والرهبان لا يأكلون أموال الناس بالباطل ويصدون عن سبيل الله والذين يكنزون الذهب والفضة ولا ينفقون في سبيل الله فبشرهم بعذاب أليم يوم يحمى عليها في نار جهنم فتكوى بها جباههم وجنوبهم وظهورهم هذا ما كنزتم لأنفسكم فذوقوا ما كنتم تكنزون. O people of Iman, verily numerous from the scholars and the saints of the Banu Israel consumed the wealth of people unlawfully, and they prevented people from the path of Allah. And those who hoard gold and silver and do not spend it in the path of Allah, give them glad tidings of a painful punishment on the day that the gold and silver shall be heated in the fire of Jahannam. And then their foreheads shall be, and their back shall be branded with it, and it will be said to them, هَذَا مَا كَنَزْتُمْ لِأَنفُسِكُمْ. This is what you had treasured for yourselves. فَذُوقُوا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْنِزُونَ. Therefore taste what you had treasured. Allah Rabbul Izzah says, and every arrogant tyrant was unsuccessful. Ahead of him in Jahannam, as he will be taken, will be given pus to drink, and he will drink, however it will not go down his throat. Death will approach him from every side, but he will not die. Before him will be severe punishment. Surah Ibrahim. And commenting on this verse of the Noble Quran, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, in Jahannam, when the drink of pus will be brought close to his mouth, he will recoil with a revulsion, and will be brought closer. It will be brought closer, and the pus will scorch his face, and his skin will fall off. And when he drinks it, his intestines will be ripped apart and emerge from his anus. Allahu Akbar. Allah will say, drink boiling water, thus will it tear to shreds his intestines. Allahumma hafadna. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, in Jahannam there is a valley known as Habhab, in which will reside every oppressor. One of the reasons of this name is the swiftness with which oppressors will be cast into this horrible valley in Jahannam. And this is from a narration in Mishkat. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, O people, cry. If you are able to cry, simulate crying, for verily the people of the fire will cry so profusely in the fire that the tears will be like rivers. They will cry until their tears stop and blood flows. Their eyes will become severely wounded, and due to the abundance of tears and blood, a ship will be able to sail if placed in it, the sea of blood and tears. Allahu Akbar. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if a bucket of the pus of the people of fire is poured onto earth, its stench will overwhelm the entire mankind. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also said, in Jahannam is a mountain of fire called As-Sa'ud. An inmate will climb this mountain for 70 years, then descend on the other side for 70 years, and this process will be forever. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the fire of Jahannam was fueled for 1,000 years until it became red, then it was fueled again for 1,000 years, then it became white, and then it was fueled for another 1,000 years, and then it became black, and that is why it is intensely black. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, in the fire are serpents as huge as camels. The poisonous effect of a bite of these serpents will endure for 40 years, and in the fire are scorpions as big as mules. When one of them bites, the poisonous effect will endure for 40 years. Sayyidina Hassan narrates from Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, narrates that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, on the day of Qiyamah, the sun and the moon will be brought in the form of buffaloes, wrapped up and cast into the fire. Sayyidina Hassan said, and what is their sin? Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, I merely narrate to you from Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Then Hassan radiallahu anhu remained silent. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, none except a miserable wretched. Someone asked, oh Nabi Allah, who is a miserable wretched? He said, he who does not practice virtuous deeds for the sake of Allah and does not shun sins for the sake of Allah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that when Allah created Jahannam, He said, oh Jibreel, go and see Jahannam. Jibreel went, saw it, and then said, oh my Rabb, by your might, no one who hears of Jahannam will ever enter it. Then Allah covered Jahannam with delight and pleasures, and He said, oh Jibreel, go see it. And he went, saw it, and then he said, oh my Rabb, by your might, I fear there will not remain anyone but except they will enter it. So that is Jahannam. حُجِبَتِ النَّارُ بِالشَّهَوَاتِ وَحُجِبَتِ الْجَنَّةُ بِالْمَكَارِحِ. When the people of Jahannam will be placed, there will be placed yokes on their necks and chains. They will be dragged into boiling water and then be cast as fuel into the fire. And so they said, enter the gates of Jahannam, wherein you shall live forever. Vile indeed is the abode of the proud ones. Sayyidina Abu Darda radiallahu anhu narrates that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, such hunger will be imposed on the inmates of the fire, which will be tantamount to the combined punishment of the inmates of the fire. And they will plead desperately to be relieved of this terrible chastisement of hunger, and their pleas will be answered with thorns. They will plead for water, mugs of heated iron filled with boiling water will be brought close to their faces. Their faces will be roasted, and when the boiling water enters by force into their bellies, it will tear to shreds whatever is inside their bodies. And it will be said to them, call to the guards of Jahannam to aid you. And the guards of Jahannam will retort, what did they not come to you? Alam ya'tikum rusulun min qabl. That did the messenger not come to you before? And they will lament and says, yes, he did come. And it will be said, call Malik, the angel in front of Jahannam. And they will cry, Ya Malik, O Malik, ask your Rabb to end the calamity, let us die. And he will respond that remain in this condition forever. And the period which will lapse from the time of their cry to the time of Malik's response will be 1,000 years. Malik will say, call your Rabb, there is no being better than your Rabb. They will wail, oh our Rabb, our evil have overtaken us. We were people gone astray. Oh our Rabb, take us out of the fire. If we will ever again repeat our disobedience, then we shall surely be the transgressors. Allah Rabbul Izzah will say that, remain there in disgrace. Remain therein. اخسوا فيها ولا تكلمون إنه كان فريق من عبادي. At that time, at that moment, they will lose hope of all goodness, and they will bray like asses and wail and be smitten by eternal regret. There's a narration that gives a very vivid description of what will happen. Once Jibreel described Jahannam to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he described it and he said that after Allah created Jahannam, it was stoked for 1,000 years, it became red. It was stoked for another 1,000 years, it became white. It was again stoked for another 1,000 years, it became black. Presently, it is back black. The roaring and leaping of its flames never cease. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was told, I take an oath by Allah, if Jahannam had to be opened the size of a needle's eye, the entire universe would be reduced to ash. The narration continues and says that if a garment of a Jahannami, an inmate Jahannam, should be suspended between the heavens and the earth, its foul odor and heat will destroy and kill the entire creation. If just one chain of Jahannam from the chains mentioned in the Quran Majid is placed on a mountain, the mountain will melt and sink into the very bottom of the earth's bowels. If a person in the east had to be inflicted a punishment of Jahannam, its heat will cause immense suffering to the people in the west. The scorching heat of Jahannam is extreme, and its depths is in an abyss. Its jewels are made of iron, and its water is boiling pus. Its garments are fire. It has 5 portals. The people who will pass through each portal have already been ordained. The distance between 2 portals is 70 miles. Each door is 70 times hotter than the previous one. And the enemies of Allah will be driven towards these doors. They will be welcomed at these portals with chains with which they will be fettered. They will be tied up. And each person will be accompanied by his or her shaitan. And they will be dragged upside down with their faces on the ground. They will be clubbed and hammered by the angels of into Jahannam. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked, after this description was given by Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, so who will occupy the various levels of Jahannam? And Jibreel replied and said, the very last at the bottom level will be occupied by the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, the people of Madain or Ma'idah and Fir'aun with his legends. And the name of this level is Hawiyah. The second level above Hawiyah will be occupied by the Mushrikeen, and its name is Jahim. The third level will be the abode of the Sabi'een, the star worshippers, and its name is Saqar. The fourth level will be the home of the Iblis and his followers, and its name is Lati. The fifth level, Hutama, will be the abode of the Yahud. The sixth level, Sa'ir, will be abode of the Nasara. Suddenly, Jibreel became silent. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked, "O Jibreel, why are you silent? Who will be the inmates of the seventh level?" With utmost difficulty and with downcast eyes, Jibreel responded, the inmates of the 7th level will be with the people of your ummah who committed major sins and died without tawbah. Unable to bear the pain and the agony of grief which this information ignited in Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam fell unconscious. And the narrator explained, he said, may my father and mother be sacrificed. Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam cradled Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's blessed head in his lap. And when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam regained consciousness, he cried and he said, will anyone from my ummah also be cast into Jahannam? And Jibreel said, yes, those who commit major sins and die without tawbah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam broke down crying uncontrollably. His tears and his grief reduced Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam to tears. Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam departed. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went home and went into complete seclusion. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam discontinued meeting people. He would emerge from the house only for salah. After salah, without speaking a word, he would return home. He would begin salah crying and end salah crying. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was unable to control his grief. On the end of the 3rd day, Sayyidina Abu Bakr appeared at the door of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's home. And he greeted and he requested permission to enter. And there was no response from within the home. He left shedding tears. Sayyidina Umar made a similar attempt to meet Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but also returned shedding tears. Sayyidina Salman al-Faris appeared. He too was met with the same silence. And he remained for a while. Restlessly he would sit, then get up, then sit, then get up. And he went away and returned without being granted permission to enter. He departed crying in profusion. And in this pitiful condition he went to the home of Sayyidah Fatima. And he narrated the entire episode. And restless and agitated, Sayyidah Fatima covered herself with a shawl and went immediately to the home of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And at the door she made salam and she said, I am Fatima. And at that moment Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was crying in sajda, grief stricken because of his ummah. Lifting his Mubarak head from sajda, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Fatima, the coolness of my eyes, what is the matter? And instructed the inmates in the home to open the door for Fatima. And when Sayyidah Fatima's eyes beheld the state of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, she wept uncontrollably. And then she said, O Nabi of Allah, what has reduced you to this condition? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, O Fatima, Jibreel had come to me and described Jahannam. And he informed me that the uppermost level of Jahannam will be the abode for those of my ummah who will be committing major sins. This grief has reduced me to this condition. Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha asked, how will the angel cast them into Jahannam? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the angel will drag them towards Jahannam, but their faces will not become black. Their eyes will not become green. Their mouths will not be sealed, nor will the shayateen be accompanying them. Then she asked, how will the angels grab them? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the men will be grabbed by their beards and the women by their hair. The old and the young, men and women, all of them in unison, will loudly lament over the state of Jahannam, or the state of humiliation. And they will be driven in the state of disgrace to Jahannam. When they arrive at Jahannam, Malik, the guard of Jahannam, will ask the angels, who are these people? They are an astonishing kind. Neither are their faces black, nor their eyes green, nor are their mouths been sealed. The shayateen, the devils, are also not accompanying them. There are no chains around their necks. The angels will respond, we are not aware of anything. We've only been commanded to deliver them to you. And Malik, the guard of Jahannam, will bellow. And he will say, oh, you unfortunate ones, who are you? And they will say, we are those people to whom the Quran was revealed and upon whom fasting was made incumbent. Malik will say, the Quran was revealed only to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, The very mention of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's name will evoke loud wails and cries from the people. And they will cry. They will say that we are the Ummah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Malik will ask that, what? Did the Quran not warn of transgression against Allah? And the sight of the blazing fire will compel them to plead to Malik, O Malik, allow us time to shed our final tears outside Jahannam. Thus they will wail until their tears are replaced by blood, and blood will flow from their eyes. And Malik will say, would that crying have been on earth? Did it only have been on earth, then you would not have suffered this calamity today. And by the command of Malik, they will all be flung into Jahannam. And in unison they will all cry out, La ilaha illallah. And on hearing this kalima, the fire will hold back. And Malik will remonstrate to the fire and say that, how can I apprehend them? The fire will say, when the kalima of Tawheed is on their tongues. And after the fire will repeat its performance several times, Malik will say that this is Allah's command to punish them. And the fire will then suck them in. And some will be in the fire until their feet. Some will be in the fire until their knees. Some until their hips. Some until their necks. And Malik will instruct the fire not to burn their faces and their hearts. And he will say, on earth they had performed salah and fast in the month of Ramadan. And they will remain in the fire as long as Allah wills. And while suffering the torments of Jahannam, they will repeatedly call out to Allah. They will call out and say, Ya Hannan, Ya Mannan, Ya Arham al-Rahimeen, O thou who's most merciful, whose limitless bounties, O the most merciful of all those who show mercy. And one day, after ages and ages of burning in the fire, Allah will say to Jibreel, go and see what is the condition of the Ummah of Muhammad. And with extreme haste, Jibreel will set off on the errand, and will find Malik in the middle of Jahannam seated on a throne of fire. And seeing Jibreel, Malik will rise from his throne to welcome him. And Jibreel will say that he's come to inquire on the state of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Malik will say, the condition is extremely bad. The fire has consumed the flesh from their bodies. Only their faces and their hearts remain intact. Iman still glitters in their hearts. And Jibreel will request to see them. And on seeing Jibreel, these inmates of Jahannam will know that he's not one of the angels of punishment. And mercy will be cascading from the beautiful form of Jibreel. And they will ask, who is this? And when it will be said to them that this is Jibreel, who used to reveal wahi to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and all of them will wail out. And they will say, oh Jibreel, convey our salams to our master, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and inform him that our sins have separated us from him. Our sins have destroyed us. And on his return, Jibreel will explain the scene to Allah. And Allah will say, oh Jibreel, did they say anything to you? And Jibreel will say, yes, they asked that their salams be conveyed to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and to inform him of their ruined and pitiable state. And Allah will then order Jibreel to deliver the message. And Jibreel will immediately present himself to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And on that occasion, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam will be resting in a palace of white pearls with 4,000 portals. The two sides of every door will be gold. And after greeting Jibreel, Jibreel will say, I've come from the sinners of your ummah. They have conveyed their salams and they've asked me to explain to you their ruined and pitiful state. And after hearing the full story of the misery, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam will go to the arsh and he will fall into sajda and he will then recite praise of Allah, such praise that has never been heard before. Allah will command him to lift his head and to supplicate whatever he wishes, and it will be granted to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he will supplicate and he will say, "Oh Allah, your command regarding the sinners of my ummah has been executed. They have suffered their punishment. Accept my intercession on their behalf." And Allah will say, "We have accepted your intercession. Proceed to Jahannam and remove every person who had recited La ilaha illallah." And on seeing Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the guards of Jahannam will stand in respect. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam will say, "O Malik, what is the condition of the sinners of my ummah?" And Malik will say, "Extremely pitiful." And the gate of Jahannam will be opened. And when the eyes fall on Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the inmates of Jahannam will scream in unison, "O Nabi of Allah, the fire has consumed our skins and our livers." And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam will proceed with the task of freeing them from the fire of Jahannam. And they will have appeared to be burnt out like coal. And they will be bathed in the river called Ridwan, which is located just outside Jannah. And they will emerge from the river handsome and beautiful with glittering faces. And thereafter they will be entered into Jannah. And those remaining in Jahannam, the kuffar, will all lament and cry, "Would that have been that we have been Muslim today, we would have also been saved." And then death will be brought. Maut will be given the form of a ram at a place between Jannah and Jahannam. And after it is slaughtered, it will be proclaimed, "No longer will there be death for anyone. Those in Jahannam will remain there forever, and those in Jannah will remain there forever." Allahumma hafadna. O Allah, save us from the fire of Jahannam. So this is a detailed description of Jahannam and what will happen to those who commit major sins and do not make tawbah. And from this we see the compassion that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has for his ummatis and the concern. And we turn to ourselves and we ask ourselves, the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are we upholding it at the time of our weddings, at the time of our janazas, at the time of our happy occasions, or are we casting it aside? Have we adorned our life with the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Nabi who will come to rescue the people who will be in Jahannam? Also, we realize the reality of Jahannam, that it is something that we need to seek protection, and therefore we need to read every day after Maghrib Salah and after the Fajr Salah, Allahumma ajirni minan nar ya mujiru, Allahumma ajirni minan nar ya mujiru, Allahumma ajirni minan nar ya mujiru. Read 7 times. And also, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr wa min adhab al-nar wa fitnati al-mahya wal-mamat wa fitnati masih al-dajjal. May Allah Rabbul Izzah grant us protection from the fire of Jahannam.